Hi, it's John. Welcome to my guitar garage. Today I'm going to be looking at the FBE-100 amp model in the Fender Tonemaster Pro. This amp model is based on one of my favorite amps of all time, the Friedman BE-100. It's an absolute monster of an amp. My friend Charles Cillier owns one of these amps. I've played it multiple times and it never disappoints. For me, it has that perfect Marshall sound, but it also has some extra switches like the HBE mode, which just gives it so much more gain. In this video, I'm going to start with some lower gain amp settings, and I'm going to gradually move up, adding more and more gain until you hear the highest gain settings. I'm also going to compare it to the SLO-100 amp model in the Fender Tonemaster Pro as well, just so you can see what the sort of gain structure differences are between the two amps. I hope you enjoy the video. Let's dive into the tones right now. So here you can see the settings for the FBE-100. I have the gain set at 14%, the master is set to 86%, the treble at 55%, middle at 69%, bass at 25%, and the presence is at 57%. None of the switches are switched on. I have an SM57 on the cap edge, 90 Hz low cut and a 5 kHz high cut, and then a ribbon R121 on the cap with an 80 Hz low cut and a 5 kHz high cut. Both cabs are set to 50% output. The delay is bypassed, and the large plate reverb is set to a very subtle 8% mix, and you can see the rest of the settings on screen now. For my Def Leppard style sound, I have the gain set to 28%, the master is set to 50%, the treble 32%, middle 74%, bass 51%, and the presence at 57%. On the second page you can see C45 is switched on. On the first cab I have an SM57 that is 1 inch off the cap edge, and on the second cab I have an MD421 that's 2 inches off the cap edge. That has an 80 Hz low cut. The mix on the reverb has been increased slightly to 21%, and you can see there's some other settings that have changed too. For my Van Halen tone, I just put everything on 100% except for the presence, which is on 8 or 80%. On the second page you can see that I've engaged VCE. Cab 1 has an SM57, 1 inch off the cap edge, and Cab 2 has an MD421, 1 inch off the cap edge, and it is off axis. For this scene the analog delay is also engaged, and you can see that I'm showing you the settings on screen now. Finally, I made some small changes to the large plate reverb for that Van Halen sound. Onto my Bon Jovi scene, you can see that the gain is set to 46%, the master 49%. Treble is 68%, middle at 42%, bass at 23%, and the presence at 77%. I have the HBE switch on and the C45 switch on. There's an MD421 1 inch off the cab edge and it's off axis. The second cab is a ribbon mic on the cone and it has a 125 Hz low cut. The levels are set to 35% and 65% for the two cabs. Once again, some small tweaks have been made to the large plate reverb for that Bon Jovi 80s Sambora sound. Next up is my Jakey Lee era Ozzy sound with a 40% gain, 70% master, 82% treble, 30% middle, 75% bass, and 57% presence. The HBE and SAT switches are on. That's a lot of gain. Cab A has the SM57, 1 inch off the cap edge, and Cab B has the R121 off axis and 1 inch off the cap edge. Again, some tweaks to the large plate reverb. For my Metallica sound, I used a gain at 100%, master at 64%, treble at 69%, middle at 31%, bass at 80%, and presence at 55%. On page 2, I have C45 and SAT switches on. I have the SM57 half inch off the cap edge, and also an R121, which is 2 inches off the cone. Once again, I have made some changes to the large plate reverb and basically dialed it down quite a lot so that it's more like sort of a small room reverb rather than a large hall. So the first thing that I wanted to do was match the settings on each of the amps. So the same middle, treble, bass, gain, master, and presence settings. Then I made sure that the two cabs were set up exactly the same for both, that they had the same output mix, and then the delay and the reverb were set the same as well. So it's a direct comparison between the two amp heads. As you can hear, the Solo 100 overdrive is a lot more muffled sounding using the same settings as the FBE-100. So I decided to go in and increase the treble and presence to see if I could get a similar tone. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and check out the link in the description below to my 80s preset pack that is available on my website, johnsguitargarage.store.